Unlike Donald Trump, we know that climate change is very real and an existential crisis for our planet. We are prepared to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of our planet.
That was Senator Bernie Sanders last night speaking to supporters after winning the New Hampshire primary. It's been just over a year since Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey introduced the Green New Deal. The Senate eventually voted it down, but since then it has become a key policy test for 2020 Democrats. Mattias Lehman is the digital director for the Sunrise Movement. It's an advocacy network pushing for the Green New Deal, and he joins me now. Mattias, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us again.
So, as we mentioned, it's been 1 year since Democrats introduced the Green New Deal. How has it impacted Congress and the 2020 race since then?
Yeah, I don't think even we imagined how much of an impact this was going to have a year ago. We were talking about climate change from the perspective of people's personal choices, right? Where they got their vegetables from, whether they were local or slightly more distant, what type of recycling they did. Now we are talking about an economic program to overhaul the industry of our nation, and it is the litmus test for Democratic Party candidates.
What about Republicans? Do you think the Green New Deal has changed the way Republicans talk about climate change?
I think the enthusiasm, particularly around youth voters, does have them a little spooked. We've started to see fossil fuel companies, shale and gas and so on, start talking about green initiatives. We've even seen Trump backpedal a little bit on his disbelief in climate change in recent stump speeches, but we're keeping our eye on the prize, which is getting an actual infrastructure bill that overhauls our economy and makes sure that we have 21st century green infrastructure.
Well, last month, your group endorsed Senator Bernie Sanders for the Democratic nomination. How has your group been campaigning for him in the early states so far?
Yeah, well, just looking at New Hampshire, we knocked over 20,000 doors. We made 33,000 phone calls, and ultimately we got over 12,000 vote pledges, which is about 3 times the size of the vote margin that you saw in that race. And we hope to continue having that sort of an impact on every state.
Does your group plan on campaigning for candidates in other races in 2020?
Yes, we've made a number of congressional endorsements down ballot, and we have also worked with local candidates like Kendra Brooks in her campaign for city council in Philadelphia.
Well, your website has a scoreboard for how Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Bernie Sanders talk about the Green New Deal. It does not mention Pete Buttigieg or Senator Amy Klobuchar right now. Is the Sunrise Movement satisfied with how they have been talking about the Green New Deal?
Well, when we talk about what sorts of actions need to happen, we know that we need a society-wide mobilization to address the threat of climate change. And we know that what that's going to take is enthusiasm of young voters and of people of color, that same coalition that powered Obama with his hope and change message to a sweeping electoral vision. And the candidate we see that best resembles that notion of looking at grand problems like the climate crisis and positing grand solutions, we see that best in Bernie Sanders.
I want to ask you about former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He has made tackling climate change a main part of his campaign. He has not endorsed the Green New Deal. In an op-ed last March, before he announced his presidential bid, he wrote that it, quote, stands no chance of passage in the Senate over the next 2 years. Is there room for compromise on fighting climate change, or is the Green New Deal the only immediate option in your view?
In our view, we're looking at the future of the planet and of our civilization for our generation. No, there is no compromise when it comes to meeting the benchmarks that science demands of us from like the IPCC guidelines and so on. There are certain changes that we need to make to our economy, or our planet will be much less habitable for my generation and the generations that come after us.
All right, Mattias Lehman. Mattias, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.